Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
And today we're going to talk about euthanasia.
Yes, it's a subject matter that causes a lot of disquiet to people that are have a view of life that it should finish with the person's demise by natural causes. That no doctor or state should ever interfere with a person's right to life until such time as they die naturally, whether they're in hospital or wherever they are, whether they're suffering from a disease that might be fatal in the long run, or suffering from dementia or whatever else other psychological interest they're suffering from, where maybe they might be wealthy, and the relatives would have a vested interest in instructing medical profession that their quality of life is not what they were used to, and to use this euthanasia. It has happened in countries where it was brought in, supposed to be very isolated, and it has extended. So you open the floodgates when you do anything about that. And the funny thing is, wherever it happened, people have called it into question, and it's assisted suicide goes with it. It's a strange thing that in this country, the left-wing parties, like People Before Profit, if you're in business, if you don't make a profit, you won't be in business. I mean, even the title of their miserable party is questionable. People Before Profit. How did they expect that anything is paid for if people don't make a profit and employment in the business section? So we leave that unsaid. But here, one of their members, they got a few extra members apparently in the last general election, and their contribution to Irish society is to table a motion for euthanasia by a fellow called Kenny, a member of that party, to table a motion to bring in euthanasia and assisted suicide. This is the contribution of the People Before Profit organisation, and anybody that voted for that party and want to have their head examined, and if they sort of come into some kind of an illness where their lives could be finished, and they want to think about that. The trouble with this euthanasia in this country that's proposed by the People Before Profit member party, and it's got the support of another left-wing party, Sinn Féin, to their eternal damnation and shame, and various others. So the chances are it could be brought in by the parties in the government, because most of them are a secular variety. Practicing Catholics seem to be as scarce as hen's teeth in that area. Now, with the variety, with the rainbow government that we have, the variety of parties that normally wouldn't come together in a fit, and now they're coming together in their self-interest and power. So the chances are that would be voted on by them. Now, will there be a referendum, and will be the usual doubtful publicity from this government about it, and talking about compassion and all these things, which is quite the reverse of. People have a right to their life until such time as they die by natural causes, whether they're in hospital or wherever they are. That's number one. You open the floodgates for that. Where's it going to end? Assisted suicide. Where's that going to end? Young people suffering from depression. A lot of them taking their own lives by suicide. So you'll hear that spoken about if there's a referendum. And bearing in mind that people vote in this country in referendums for the ending of life by abortion, and then various other issues that they voted for. So the chances are they'll be just led up the garden path again with this if there's a referendum. But maybe they don't need a referendum for it. They can just do it, the same as they've inflicted various other penalties on Irish people. Being the cause of closing many family businesses throughout the country, and deserted towns and villages as a result. Instead of decentralisation, you mentioned some hospital or something, whatever it was, health Department of Health. All these things, a lot of them should be relocated down the country, where the space and where it gives a bit of infrastructure. take them out of Dublin, for goodness sake. The centralisation is always a bad thing for anything. So have them down there. You've got everything in Dublin. How can you get around, including the Children's Hospital where it's been built in James Street, a kind of nearly a no-go area traffic-wise. So these are all the situations as regards euthanasia. It is a backward step, but it would be something that I would expect from left-wing parties, because they don't respect life the way you should, and the way Catholics and Christians and people of goodwill respect life in all its forms.
I would almost argue, John, that euthanasia is in Ireland already, and I'll give you examples. I've had relatives and I've had friends who have died in hospitals, and they've had cancer. And what they do is, if the cancer is terminal, they speed up the dying process by administering morphine. So a person could be gone within 2 or 3 days. Now, the person probably could have lived on for another 6 months, but they need the hospital bed. And the way they look at it is, the person's not going to live very much longer anyway. So they administer morphine, and the person is gone within, say, 3 or 4 days. Now, the problem with it is that a lot of the time that's not explained to the families correctly. So the family doesn't really know. I think there's a lack of communication between doctors and the family about the patient when they're administering morphine. And before they know it, their mother, their father, their cousin, whatever, is gone, and they didn't realise it was going to happen so fast.
Exactly. So there's no justification for doing such a thing. And a family that's concerned about the welfare of their relative, their dearly loved relative, mothers or aunts or uncles or whatever it might be, they should be consulted in the present time. Now, we won't go into the time when, if this euthanasia becomes illegal, and it says that's a different scenario altogether, but at the moment life is supposed to be protected in that way. And I noticed that where I was in Navan that I spoke earlier about the excellent treatment I got from doctors and nurses and all that in that marvellous hospital, in St Mary's Hospital in Navan. So but there would be people in there a lot worse than me. Not so much in where I was in the cardiac unit, but in the general state of affairs in the hospital. And some of them mightn't survive. But the idea that their life could be terminated a bit quicker with the business of morphine, without the family being... First of all, if there's anything going to happen to a relative or a friend or an important person, the relatives should be spoken to, because if that person is a Catholic, a practicing Catholic or a Christian, they need to sort of be able to avail of the sacraments, particularly in the Catholic Church, of the last rites, what they used to call extreme unction, but the last rites, because eternity stretches a long time, stretches forever. Your life in this earth is comparatively short, and nothing or any doctors or anybody about beds being available. How many more is going to be polished off if they're in that condition by the time they get in with this excessive morphine? Respect the patient, respect it, and let the relatives know. But once this business of euthanasia comes in, could be some relatives that would would not be sympathetic to the life of the person that these doctors are making this decision about, because they might be wealthy and that, and there'd be an incentive for them to sort of say, well, we don't want to see them suffer. Now, so it's a very dangerous concept, and doctors should never, ever do such a thing. It's against their Hippocratic oath and against their medical practice, as I witnessed in Navan. I couldn't see any of them doctors being party to that.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much, Oliver.